Our story today seems to take place on Easter evening. It's before all of the disciples had actually seen Jesus alive again yet. They have heard a wild report from the women who went to the tomb that morning when an angel or two had told them that Jesus had come back from the dead. So the disciples had heard that report, but unfortunately, when they heard it, they did not believe the women because their words sounded to them like nonsense. The greatest message in the world, and the disciples didn't listen. So maybe if I could, can I just talk to the men for a second? Men, can we huddle up? Can we just have some guy time? Yeah, women and children, just kind of take a break just for a second. It's just us guys here, okay? So I'm just talking to you right now, fellas. No one else is listening, okay? Always listen to the women. All right? Even if it sounds to you like nonsense. I've been there. It definitely does sometimes. Doesn't matter. You got to listen to them anyway. They know things we don't. Okay? Don't tell them that, but just listen. All right? Okay, that's it. Break. Everyone else, you can come back. Thank you. We just needed to go over some guy stuff right quick. So after that happened on Easter morning and into midday, later that afternoon, Jesus appeared to two of his followers who were walking along the road from Jerusalem to the village of Emmaus. And when Jesus suddenly disappeared, they rushed back to Jerusalem to tell the rest of Jesus' followers, which would have been a little over 100 people at that time. So these two Emmaus disciples tell their incredible story, and that's where our passage picks up. So when you hear the first verse say that everyone was talking about this, it was the report that the two Emmaus disciples had told them. So let's see what happens next. This is a reading from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 24, 36 to 45. Hear now the word of the Lord. While they were all still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why do doubts rise in your minds? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I, myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet. And while they still did not believe it because of joy and amazement, he asked them again, "Do you have anything to eat here?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate in their presence. He said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you, that everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." Then he opened their minds so they could understand the scriptures. May God bless the reading of this holy word today. So there were a couple of times in the four Gospels where it says that Jesus knew what other people were thinking. And so here he says to the disciples, "Why do doubts arise in your minds?" I assume when he asked that, they thought, "Because you died, man. This is freaking us out. How could we not?" But Jesus did give them a heads up beforehand what would happen: his arrest, his execution, and his coming back from the dead. He told them it would all happen. So while everyone else is freaking out, Jesus is like, "I told you so." If only they and we would listen to Jesus more, then we wouldn't be so troubled. We would probably freak out less, and we could have more peace too. Yes, we will still face challenging times, unbelievable moments, days that really stink. But if we can listen to and remember Jesus' words more, then we will go through those situations with a little more peace. Jesus wanted to help his disciples then and now face challenges with more peace, strength, assurance. That's why he told them in John's gospel, I have told you these things so that in me you will have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So if we can remember that, then when hard, even unbelievable things happen, we can still have a sense of peace. And if we want to practice some WWJD, some what would Jesus do, then when we walk into situations where people are all worked up about something, then the only words that we will speak will be words of peace as well. And as always, when you act like Jesus, it changes people. When I talk to young ministers who are just at the beginning of their arduous journey into church work, I tell them the minister should always be the calmest person in the room. Even if you don't have all the answers to whatever problems you need to address, that is the first and the biggest gift you will give, to be a non-anxious presence who calms people down just by being there. And it really changes the tone of a discussion so that then you can get to work figuring things out and getting things done. I think my predecessor here, Jim McCoy, was really wonderful with that. He always had that peaceful, easy feeling kind of vibe. And I think it was a true blessing for the church that he was a non-anxious presence. But it doesn't just apply to ministers. Anybody in any meeting or any family get-together or tense situation can do it. You've never had a tense family get-together, have you? Anybody can do it. When you are calm, it helps other people get calm and settle down and think more clearly. And I don't know if you have noticed the news lately or been out in the world lately, but people aren't thinking very clearly. There has been a lot of bad things happening. Bad things have been done. Harm is being caused, and people are naturally worked up. Some people are worked up over important things that have sadly happened. Other people are worked up about unimportant things or things that haven't actually happened at all, but they're still really upset. So what can you do? What should you do? Should you tell the people who are misinformed that they are wrong so they should stop worrying about it? No. Like I said last week, I've told my wife that many times, but it doesn't work. Yet. We want to say it. We want to just tell people, you're wrong, don't feel that way. But it won't actually improve the situation. Instead, the best way to help is to bring peace. If you tell someone who's wrong and misinformed that they are wrong and misinformed, they'll just get upset and disagree with you. But if you, by whatever words or actions you use, if you demonstrate the message, peace be with you, well, nobody will argue with that. So, as always, be more like Jesus. 2 places in the Bible, it commands us to seek peace and pursue it. First in Psalm 34:14 in the Old Testament, and then again in the New Testament, 1 Peter 3:11. It tells us, seek peace and pursue it. Notice that it doesn't say, be a jerk and pursue that. No. Nor does it say, you can be a Pharisee as long as you're just nice about it. No. Seek peace and pursue it. So that is the first thing Jesus says to his disciples here. Peace be with you. And yet they were still frightened, understandably. So he continues to help them along in their understanding. First, by asking questions. Why are you so troubled? And then just showing them himself. Look at my hands and my feet. It is me. So again, as always, Jesus is a good model. The model of Jesus we can follow here is, number one, be a peaceful presence in your attitude, in your words. Number two, ask good questions. Hey, what's going on with you? Seems like something's bugging you. Everything okay? Then number three, just be yourself. This is me. This is what's important to me. I care about you. And that's it. Now, even after Jesus himself did those things, it still says that the disciples still did not believe it because of joy and amazement, which again is understandable. A lot going on that day. So Jesus relaxes them even more. Do you have anything to eat around here? And that's a very good strategy. It gets them focused specifically on other things. And also, I would imagine, coming back from the dead probably would work up an appetite. So, Jesus had a bite to eat first, and only then does he start explaining things. And it's good that he didn't try to explain things earlier, because the disciples were too worked up to hear anything, to process any information. Because after he had been executed, and after they've heard all these crazy reports, then after he pops up, shows up in their presence, the thinking parts of their brains were not working in that moment. In Bible study last Wednesday and in the sermon 6 weeks ago, we mentioned how different parts of our brain work at different times. When we're really anxious or mad or just wound up tight, the emotional control center of our brain, the amygdala in the middle, it's flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which then overrides our thinking brain in the front, making us freak out. And when that happens, the thinking part of our brain is no longer in the driver's seat. So that's when people lose their cool, shout in anger, do all kinds of unhelpful things because they are literally not in their right mind or thinking straight. Sometimes you'll see athletes on the field who are just really in the moment. They'll do something kind of ridiculous, crazy. And you think, well, what, did they just lose their mind? Yes, they did. Soccer commentators will say he's been blinded by the red mist when a player flies off the handle and does something rash and gets ejected from the game. Oh, he was blinded by the red mist. Like just the rage overwhelmed his thinking brain, and he made a terrible, dumb decision. And even off the field, someone who is emotionally worked up about an issue is not someone who can have a calm conversation because they're all worked up. And maybe it's for a really good reason, or maybe they're misinformed. Either way, they're all worked up and their thinking brain isn't calling the shots. and they can't think straight for a bit. It happens to all of us because all of us are human. So sometimes I will say, this isn't something I can talk about without getting worked up. Maybe it's a sensitive subject for me. Maybe it hits too close to home. Whatever the reason, I need to take a step back, take a breather, so that I don't make the situation worse. And I can feel myself getting all worked up. When our super emotional amygdala is in control, we're unable to think or to listen. We can only think, listen, and process information when we calm down. It's why you hear the advice, if you get upset, count to 10 before you say something. It just lets you breathe for a minute. Or there are little calming mindfulness tricks like look around the room and find 3 things that are blue or something like that. Whatever it is, it just distracts your freaked out brain, gives you something to focus on so that you can just relax a little bit. And Jesus is so brilliant here that he gives the disciples a little more time to calm down before he dives into the theological nitty-gritty of what's going on. Jesus, you're back. How is that possible? Well, I told you I would, but anyway, do you have anything to eat around here? What? I mean, yeah, I guess we've got some, you want some fish or something? I mean, do you need a fork or tartar sauce? That twist, that distraction, it just kind of lets the pressure out. That simple, perfect question helped them get off of the trains that their brains were on, which were barreling down emotionally explosive tracks. Peace be with you. Then once they were calm, he's got their attention. And that's when they were ready for him to open their minds so that they could understand the scriptures. You can see how Jesus, as always, has perfect timing. They couldn't have understood anything before that, but now they're ready to listen. Peace, peace be with you. Yes, Lord. It reminds me of the story when Jesus and his disciples had finished a long day of ministry, and it was evening, and they were on a boat, rocking on the waves. And Jesus, it had been a long day. The boat was floating. Jesus takes a nap. Although, sometimes you take a nap, sometimes the nap takes you. Whatever. But Jesus falls asleep. And then a terrible storm comes along. The waves are pouring into the boat, almost drowning it. But Jesus keeps sleeping. The disciples freak out. So they wake him up and they say, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" They were upset that he wasn't upset. You should be more upset, Jesus, if you're supposed to be our leader. So Jesus got up and said to the waves, "Peace, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He always knew just the right thing to say, even to the very wind and rain. So let us do that too in anxious situations, whether in families or at work or out in the community. Let us seek peace and pursue it. Be a peace bringer. Help people calm down. Peace. Be still. And actually, I like the way that you can say that in Spanish. If you want to say it in Spanish, you can say, tranquilo, tranquilo. And you can see how it's like our word for tranquil, tranquilo. It's like saying, hey, relax, chill out, simmer down now, tranquilo. And I had someone say that to me in Spanish when I was in Nicaragua a few years ago. I was on a mission trip, and we were working out in a village for a week, Nacascolo. It was a beautiful place. It wasn't in the jungle, but it was jungle adjacent, for sure. So all the guys on the team slept in the Protestant church, that purple building in the back. All the women slept in the Catholic church. And it was just a one-room open space. We slept on cots, one right next to the other, under mosquito nets, since the windows were always open. And I was so excited to be there that on my first morning, I was bouncing. So I was excited as I made my bed and got my sleeping bag all straight again. I was excited when I was getting my backpack ready, making sure I brought everything, putting on my sunscreen since I'm a pasty gringo and I would be out in the sun all day. And I was probably singing the whole time, ba-do-ba-do-do-do-do-do, yeah, ba-do-do-do-do-do, hey. And in the cot next to me was one of our translators, a really cool guy named Lenin. He's, you can't see him, he's rocking the shades and the hat there. And he was trying really hard to get some extra sleep. He wasn't as excited as I was, but because he was just at work, like it was a work week for him. And it was really hard to sleep in that church because you're on a cot and you're in a room filled with some really big guys who snored like dying dinosaurs all night long. So there I am, bebopping along, and Lenin doesn't even lift his head or open his eyes or move at all. He just moans from his sleeping bag, "Stuart, tranquilo." And I said, "Oh, sorry, lo siento." And I quietly snuck out of the church. And I felt bad. I was a little too worked up for the people around me, even though it was for a good reason. He needed me to take it down a notch. Tranquilo. Peace. Be still. So I want you to be that voice. I want you to speak in a still, small voice so that people have to stop talking and lean in to hear what you're saying. When other people are all worked up around you, anxious or in a tizzy, buzzing around in circles, being too loud and not paying attention, be the voice of Jesus that says, "Tranquilo, peace be with you." And by doing so, you will help them find a calmness so that they will be able to open their minds to the truth of God's grace. That is a gift that you can give. So let us pray. Oh God, we confess that too often we have been anxious and worked up, and we have said things in those moments that were not helpful. We have meddled because we couldn't be still. We confess and we are sorry that we so often act and speak out of our own anxiety that only makes things worse. We're sorry for the unpeace that we have caused. So help us to listen to Jesus. May we hear him telling us, "Peace, peace be with us," so that as we walk into rooms, we can bring that peace, so that more people's minds will be open to the truth of your grace and your love for them. In your name we pray. Amen.